So today we're gonna figure out how to write a song like Charlie Puth. Well, I just dripped water all over myself. That's a good way to start off. But we're gonna be breaking down a song called Light Switch. It's a pretty big hit. I'm sure you've heard of it. And it goes like this.
Turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. Now I don't wanna fight this. You know how to just make me want you. Turn me on like a light switch.
I know, I hate to pause the song. We need to figure out what makes Light Switch sound so Puthy, right? It has all the elements of a Charlie Puth song. It has that Charlie Puth sound. And we're going to dig into it and figure out how to take those Puthisms, if you will, and put them into a different song. But first, I think I need a haircut. All right, let's go. So we're analyzing Light Switch here. Oh, this pen sucks. And we're gonna break this down into two main categories. We've got harmony and melody. And we're gonna break down melody into pitches and rhythm. And we're gonna break down harmony into chord progression and chord quality. And I'll talk about what that means in just a second. Now, most pop songs only have 4 chords: the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. Let me explain. If you take a C major scale, you've got 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can build a chord on each one of those notes like this. That's your C major chord, but it's also called the 1 chord because it's built off of the first note of the scale. So this is the 1 chord, then the 2 chord, built off of the second note in the scale, and so on. 3, 4, the 5 chord, the 6 chord, and the 7 chord. Now remember, most pop songs just have 4 of those chords: the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. In the key of C major, the 1 chord is C major, the 4 chord is F major, the 5 chord is G major, and the 6 chord is A minor. And what's really cool is you can mix up these 4 chords however you want and get a solid pop song, just like that. So I'm gonna use this principle of the 4 chord pop tune and just come up with a random order of chords. So let's try this. We'll do the 4 chord, and I'm gonna do this in C major, by the way. So the 4 chord is F major, and then we'll go to A minor, which is the 6 chord, that 6 minor chord. And then we'll go to the 1 chord, which is C major, and then the 5 chord, G major. It's also way too hot in here, so the jacket's coming off. Okay, I still look cool, right? All right, back to Light Switch. So the first thing we have to figure out is whether or not Charlie uses those same 4 pop chords we just went over. Let's take a listen.
Yeah. Why you calling at 11:30 when you only wanna do me dirty? But I hit right back 'cause you got that, yeah.
Now, if you know how to read sheet music, you might have noticed that we're not in the key of C major here. We're actually in the key of G flat major, which means we have 6 flats to deal with. But don't worry, I'm gonna do all the analysis anyway, so you just get to sit back and relax. Plus, this song is just the same 4 chords over and over again. Seriously, the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, the bridge, it's the same 4 chords repeated. So I promise we'll be okay. Now let's analyze these chords to see what's going on. So here are the basic chords. We've got an E flat minor, a G flat major, a D flat major, and an A flat minor. Now remember, we're in the key of G flat major. So right off the bat, we know that the G flat chord there is the 1 chord. And to figure out the other chords, I think it'll help to write out the full major scale at the bottom of the page here. So here's all 7 notes in the G flat major scale. So the E flat is the 6th note in the scale, making it the 6th chord. And that 6th chord is indeed one of those 4 pop chords we went over. Now we know the G flat is the 1 chord, so let's go on to the D flat. That is the 5th note of the scale, so it's the 5 chord. Again, another one of those pop chords. And then finally we have A flat, which is the 2nd note in the scale, making it the 2 chord. So there's our first big takeaway. Charlie Puth is going outside of the 4 main pop chords by using that 2 chord. So I'm gonna do the same thing in the song I'm writing. Maybe I'll throw in that 2 chord there and see how it goes. So in case you forgot, the song that I'm writing has the chord progression F major, A minor, C major, and G major. Again, we're in the key of C, so C is the 1 chord, F is the 4 chord, A minor is the 6 chord, and G is the 5 chord. So I'm gonna substitute a D minor for this F here. So instead of the 4 chord, we're gonna do a D minor, which is the 2 chord. Let's do a comparison between my original version and this new version with the D minor. 1, 2, 3, go. There's the A minor, C major, now with the D minor. Little different. Same. D minor again. It's a subtle change, it's a little darker, and I think the reason for that is we have more minor chords in the mix now. But it doesn't really sound like Charlie Puth yet, does it? And that's because we haven't talked about chord quality. That's what we're going to get into next. And once we do, it's going to sound like this. All right. So we talked about chord progression. Let's move on to chord quality. If you take a closer look at the chords in Light Switch, you'll see that Charlie doesn't just use regular minor chords and major chords. Here's an E flat minor 11. Here's G flat add 9. D flat add 4. So let's use some of those same colors in the chord progression I've been using for this video. Instead of a D minor chord, let's do D minor 11. Then, instead of A minor, let's do A minor 11. From there we have the C major chord, and we can make that more interesting by just adding the 9. Nice. And then finally the G major chord. Let's use that add 4 chord here. So it's going to be G add 4. Just add that C in there. By the way, that add 4 chord is all over Charlie Puth's music. He uses it a ton. All right, so we've got a pretty good chord progression in place now. Sounds very Puthy. Now it's time to talk about melody. But if you want to learn even more about chords and harmony, you should definitely check out my course, Chord Theory for R&B Piano. It's great for jazz too, and it'll show you how to do all of these more complex chords and reharmonizations to make your music sound more interesting. So if you ever feel like the chords you're playing are just kind of boring and you want to spice things up, get those thicker, juicier chords, this course is definitely for you. It's 14 hours of content. It's literally everything I know about chord theory from the basics to the most complex, and you'll be able to apply what you've learned to your music right away. Oh, and I gotta mention, if you order now, there are 3 bonus courses that you get in addition to Chord Theory for R&B Piano. So you can learn more about that, the link on the screen or in the description. But guys, we're not done yet. We still gotta write a Charlie Puth melody, so let's get to it. Let's take a closer look at the melody to Light Switch. What do these phrases have in common?
Why you calling at a when you only wanna? Why you always wanna, but you never wanna? When you're moving your body around.
Even if you don't read music, you could probably hear that he's just repeating the same note again and again, sometimes up to 9 times in a row. Here's another classic Charlie Puthism, the arpeggio.
When you're moving your body around and around.
We've got a G flat major chord, and he's simply arpeggiating it by going 1, 5, 3. This next one is the quintessential Charlie Puth arpeggio. He does this all the time, and it has such a unique sound. This is the 1, 7, 5, 2 arpeggio, and that's all in the key of G flat. So we talked a bit about pitches, but now let's dig into some of the unique things he's doing with rhythm in the melody. The main thing we want to look at is Charlie's use of syncopation. Syncopation is when you emphasize or accent notes that aren't on the beat. Take a listen to the pre-chorus. The notes with the up arrows indicate emphasized upbeats.
Go right back in.
Here's some more syncopation, this time in the chorus.
Like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. Now I don't wanna fight this.
All of those emphasized upbeats are what give the music that forward momentum. So if you combine all the things we just talked about, the syncopation, the arpeggios, the repeated notes, if you put that all together, do you get a Charlie Puth song? No, there's still one more thing we have to cover, and it's the most important thing. It's how Charlie uses repetition and variation in his melodies. The pre-chorus of Light Switch is a great example. The first 2 phrases are almost exactly the same, except the first one ends low and the second one ends high. And what's really interesting is that in the third phrase, he starts out the same way, but finishes with new material. This is a classic and extremely effective use of repetition and variation in a melody. I call it the Lionel Richie move, because it's once, twice, 3 times, a lady. You play it once, you do it again, and you do it a third time with a little variation at the end. Once, twice, 3 times, a lady. I don't know, it makes sense in my head at least. All right, guys, it is time for the grand finale. I've got the green shirt back on, and I'm gonna play you 2 original choruses that I wrote over the chord progression that I played for you earlier in the video. So here's the first one, and just a heads up, I don't have any lyrics or anything, so be prepared for a bunch of bubs, na-na-nas, and da-da-das. I also threw in a couple of extra production elements, so hopefully I captured some essence of Charlie Puth in here, but let's take a listen. 1, 2, 3. Bum, 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 da, 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 So did you pick up on any of the Charlie Puth-isms that we went over? Let's take a closer look. So right off the bat, we got a lot of repetition. D, D, D. There's a D, there's a D, there's another D. So a lot of repeated notes in there. And then if you look at the bigger picture, the phrases repeat as well. So da, 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 da. Then again, da, 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 da. And then the third time, de, do, de, do, do, de, do, which is very similar. So we have basically the same phrase 3 times in a row. And if you look at the rhythm there, you've got syncopation. This note right here is on the upbeat. Same with this note right here on the upbeat. That's syncopation, emphasized upbeats. Also, we've got an arpeggio at the very beginning, outlining a C major triad. That's a broken arpeggio outlining a C major triad. Bum, 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 bum. So that's the first chorus I wrote. Now here's option 2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So here's the sheet music for option 2, and your homework is to identify as many Charlie Puth techniques as you can. Feel free to comment below with what you find, or just let me know which one you liked better, number 1 or number 2. And before we go, I want to give you something really cool. It's going to help you learn music theory and get better at understanding chords and scales and modes and chord functions, all the stuff that we went over in this video. And it's called the last chord scale chart you'll ever need because it encompasses so much information in a really easy to understand way. So you can get that for free in the description below. And also I mentioned my course, Chord Theory for R&B Piano. That is my flagship course for how to play R&B and jazz chords on the piano, including progressions and voicings and reharmonizations. It is everything I know about how to turn basic, boring chords into rich, colorful harmony that really stands out, and it's just so much fun to play and listen to. So check all that out in the description, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.